No, Nick Miller joins us on the line. Good morning, Nick. How are you?
Morning, lads. How you doing?
2 minutes and 49 seconds of chaos at Wembley Stadium, and Tottenham are out of the Champions League. Does that just about sum it up?
Pretty much. I mean, when the chaos is Juventus attacking you, then I suppose you can't be massively disappointed. But it was incredible how over the 180 minutes Spurs dominated for probably 165 of them, and that was enough for them to go out. It was a pretty incredible performance by Juventus. It's sort of a lesson in ruthlessness, really.
Yeah, we've been talking about that ruthlessness and the stuff of champions and the steel that's required when things are really tough for you, as they were for Juventus. And Mauricio Pochettino was bristling at the suggestion that it was down to a lack of experience that ultimately was the reason for his side going out. But watching it, it kind of felt that that was the case. So Juventus, as you say, dominated for 75%, 80% of this tie, and yet when they needed to come up with the big moment, they were able to do it.
I mean, I suppose this we shouldn't necessarily surprise us, because this is sort of what Juventus do. They find ways to win. They have players who, like Higuain and Dybala, who scored last night, who can look sort of peripheral for long portions of the game, and then just find some way to hurt you. That is something that Spurs are going to have to learn, and probably learn pretty quickly with the team that they have at the moment.
So the start that Tottenham made to the game, it looked like Son was having Barzagli on toast pretty much for the majority of the game. They created one or two really good chances. Do you think that half-time just came at the wrong time for them, because it just gave Juventus an opportunity to steady themselves? Because at the back they didn't look great, Juventus. They had a couple of really good chances, Tottenham, and over the course of the two legs they'll certainly feel they had enough chances to win the tie.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was necessarily half-time, because Spurs were still pretty good in the sort of 10 minutes or so afterwards. You just see my cat on the sofa behind me there as well. But I think it was Max Allegri made a tactical switch about sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the second half, where he moved Andrea Barzagli infield a bit where Son couldn't quite get in so much, and they, not to get sort of bogged down into too much of this, but they switched to 4-3-3 and it worked instantly. And that 5 minutes they scored those two goals, and that was it. The
performance of Dybala, he kind of flitted in and out of that game last night, but when he really was needed, he was able to come up with that just sumptuous finish. And I know there was a defensive lapse in particular from Kieran Trippier, who just managed to play him on side. But when you see what he's been able to do over the last couple of seasons in these key moments against the best teams in Europe, I'm starting to increasingly believe that it's unlikely he's going to be at Juventus for the long term. As big a club as they are, there are riches far beyond what he can learn in Turin available elsewhere in Europe. I wonder what your thoughts are on where he ranks now amongst the, say, top 5 or 6 players in Europe, and what are the chances that he's going to end up at a super club, be it Real, Barca, PSG, Bayern Munich, over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the thing that people say about him is that he's the kind of successor to Messi. I think that's probably got more to do with his sort of stature and his the fact that he's Argentinian as well. But undoubtedly, he's such a brilliant player, and you kind of forget that last night we were seeing him not 100% fit. He's only just come back from a while out, so to see him looking that threatening and to sort of cut through, I suppose, defence, which is usually pretty good, that easily was absolutely remarkable.
I want to finish on Tottenham, but before we leave Juventus, we're wondering how good they are. They're maybe slightly less off in terms of their form and their ability. They're all a year older, some of the guys like Barzagli and Buffon and Chiellini, than the side that has lost 2 of the last 3 Champions League finals. But now that we've seen all the top teams play in the knockout stages, where do you rank them as potential winners? Would you still have them behind all those clubs I mentioned previously, and then maybe the likes of Manchester City as well?
Yeah, probably. But I don't want to kind of fall back on cliches, but they were just one of those, as we saw last night, they're just one of those teams who know what it takes to win. They can be sort of quite bad for long spells of games and then just do something to beat you. I mean, at half time we were kind of discussing in the press box that this may even be a Juventus team that were past their best, and the Tottenham's intensity and so on were too much for them, but they still never, despite them being kind of pressed and looking overrun at some stage, they still never really looked out of control. So you wouldn't really bet against them in any game against any team.
So on Tottenham, a lot of the commentary in the papers this morning is around how the experience will stand to them and they will come back next year a better team. They're almost certainly going to qualify for the Champions League again next season, and that their key players will have a little more nous when it comes to those big moments, and they won't panic if they find themselves in a similar situation next season. But that's on the assumption that all those guys are still there, Nick. Now, this is another year that'll have come and gone where they won't have won a big trophy if they don't manage to win the FA Cup. It'll be 10 years without a trophy. There's only so much time that Kane, Eriksen, Dembele, that they're going to hang around and stick with a club that isn't winning things. And of course, they have to assume their manager's going to stick around as well.
Well, I mean, I think the manager's the key point. You've got to be quite careful here, because Tottenham fans get very upset if you suggest that Harry Kane might want to earn 3 times what he's earning and have more chance of winning trophies somewhere else. But I think that obviously the one that's most likely to leave this coming summer is Danny Rose, and he's not. He wasn't starting last night. He's not an automatic choice at the moment. I think players like Kane and Dele Alli and Eric Dyer will be there for at least another season. So they do have this kind of limited window in all likelihood. But I think they're going to be okay for another season, maybe another season after that. Certainly, they'll want to. It will be an absurd decision to, no matter how much money is offered, to sell any of those big players before they actually get into the new stadium.
And just finally a word, I know you were at Wembley last night, Nick, but a word on Man City. Their 15-month unbeaten run at home is over. They were beaten by Basel last night, which on paper stands out as a fairly seismic result, and it was a pretty strong City team as well. And they were described as very poor by Pep Guardiola. I doubt he's really worried by what happened last night. I just wonder, does he feel that this is probably the best thing that could have happened to them? He has now real ammunition to go after them in training, to build them up ahead of their next game, show them how complacency and a lack of being dialed in mentally can affect you at this level. And for City and their chances of winning the treble, this maybe could have been the best thing that would have happened to them at this stage of the season, a defeat that will not hurt them in any way.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the games that they've lost this season, the common thread, I suppose, maybe not the Liverpool game, but the common thread is games where their guard drops. They think they're just going to win easily. It's the group game in the Champions League, in the Champions League, and then last night, and then obviously Wigan in the FA Cup. These are sort of games where they thought they got it in the bag. So this be perfect ammunition for Guardiola to kind of try and inspire them to guard against that complacency anyway.
Okay, Nick Miller, thanks so much for taking the time to chat to us this morning.
No problem. Thank you.